Oh, hi! This week we're gonna make another fold over elastic skirt overlay thing. So I have some dresses I don't often wear, mostly because they kind of hug my tummy in a way that I do not like. They're basically bodycon dresses. And with how nicely the rainbow handkerchief skirt, I almost said scarf again, that I made a couple weeks ago, how nicely that falls and doesn't make me feel self-conscious wearing something like that. It gave me the idea to make like an interchangeable lace overlay skirt for these dresses so that I will actually fucking wear them. And is that not the point of messing with your own clothes, is to make you want to wear them more? Speaking of messing with things, if you recognize this dress here, ooh, magical. I did have a problem with the back of the dress because it's a halter top situation, and I did cinch up the back with some elastic, but it still kept falling below where my bra was sitting. But I added a very adorable decorative element as shown here. You get the point. I added some lace to the back and a little decorative strip. Also, that like braid was digging into my neck because it's kind of thick rope material. So I added some bias tape to the inside so that it's nice and soft, and I can't tell, even where I bunched up a lot of the hand stitching to make sure it covered that bit, it's not irritating me anymore. So A+ for making things more functional even after I'm like done the project. Don't keep yourself from evolving things just because you like thought it was in its final form and its final form isn't working for you. It's all good. So anyways, yes, these are super comfortable dresses, but I just never fucking wear them. So I'm gonna say right now, I'm gonna lean super hard into Halloween this year because there's so little joy in the world right now. Let's make spooky season be all the seasons. I was gifted this spectacular witchy sheer mesh velvet flocked Halloween themed fabric by my fairy god Cheryl, and I just need to wear it on all the things. And this is also genuinely going to be a way quicker project than the rainbow skirt that I made because we're not doing complicated math to get the circle in the middle. We're just going to do basically a gathered rectangular skirt situation, very minimal measurements, and also no hemming because it's mesh. I feel like this is going to be an easy win. I also feel like that is how I set myself up for failure, is because I fuck things up when I get too cocky about it. I'm confident that this is just going to go really smoothly. I'm gonna break out my new best friend, the fold over elastic, but this will work with whatever elastic you like that you don't mind being exposed. Let's get to it, shall we? Here's what you need. Lace and mesh and other sheer fabrics come in all shapes and sizes. For this, you don't necessarily need it to be stretchy, but this fabric does have a decent amount of stretch going one direction where it doesn't going the other way, and because this is gonna hit right around my knees, I want there to be some movement for my upper leg meets. And it's a general rule of thumb to have the stretch going across you rather than up and down. Gotta get that ease. So I'm gonna be able to do this with one panel, but certainly feel free to add as many panels as you need to fit around your hips. And you can add as much gathering ahead of time as you want. If you want like a ton of floof to this kind of a thing, I mean, I wouldn't go more than like twice your hip measurement, but you can still make it pretty goddamn floofy and just do some gathering stitches across the top. I'm just gonna work with this and it will be cinched up enough with the elastic I'm gonna use, but that is an additional option if you want extra floof or a bigger size. Super easy to customize this. This fabric is over 4 feet wide. I stopped counting once I was past my hip measurement, but that's really the only measurement you need for the fabric, is to make sure when you have it in a loop, however many pieces you're putting together, get it up over your hips. My hips are around a 41, so I have about 10 extra inches more than my hip measurement, and that's perfect. Keep in mind there's going to be seam allowance, so some of that's going to get eaten up, and there's selvage happening here, so I'm gonna trim that away, so that'll take another like inch off total, but I'm still plenty in the clear. Plus, this is where the stretch is, so we're extra in the clear. Once you figure out the width, that's also when you can sort out your length. So I wanted to start at my high waist, so basically where this belt situation is, and then I want it to go, I think, pretty much where the flannel under here is hitting, because the dresses I'm putting this over are shorter than this, and I want some of the overlay to hang below the actual fabric underneath so that you can really see the pattern happening. And again, this is a mesh that's not going to fray at all, so I don't have to worry about a hem length, where if you do need to hem your fabric, if it's something that's going to fray, add an inch or two to the bottom so that you have room to work with for that. I'm going to call it there, and if you cut it longer, you can shimmy it up a little bit where you can't I mean, you can make things longer, but it's not going to look as nice. So my length is about 22 inches, which pretty much tracks. That's about how long I make most of my skirts. So I am going to go cut this real quick on my fancy cutting table. If you missed that new setup, I talked about it in the tote bag video that just went up last week. Oh yeah, I never actually listed the supplies, huh? So I have the fabric, elastic, matching thread, sewing machine, scissors, definitely pins because we're going to have to quarter this, and then something to wear it over. I mean, unless you want your underwear out, like, more power to you. That's also fine. Okay, now I have my rectangle. Oh, I'm grabbing the leftover fabric. I was like, wait, how did I fuck up the measurements that badly? Like, I know I'm a scatterbrain, but I literally just measured it out. So this is my panel. Okay, so you can just do a regular straight stitch to attach the sides right sides together and then flip it out. I was thinking I would do that and then serge it, but then it's going to be super visible from the outside. So what I have heard, and only practice, I think, 1 or 2 times ever, is that sheer fabrics are the ideal thing to do French seams on, so that way it looks finished from both sides and it's not like exposed on either edge. It's something I could practice more. Might as well give it a shot. I don't think there's any harm in doing it. So what you do for that is you actually put the fabric wrong sides together, so counterintuitive to how you attach like every other seam, and then I'm going to stitch that 1/2 inch in. Again, you may have to recalibrate your seam allowances to account for this. Oh boy, I definitely did not get enough sleep and have not had enough coffee for this. I did watch Blank Check last night though, and my god, it was not nearly as bad as I was expecting it to be. It held up okay since 1994. I was shocked. Oh, and because this is super thin and also super jumpy fabric and it's probably going to be a bitch to sew on most machines, I did switch to my walking foot. That helps things along. If I'm getting weird tension issues, we'll do the tissue trick that I also did last week, which, game changing. Not that I tend to have issues with tension, but I have been trying different threads, so that seemed to solve the issue. But it was kind of, you know, tricky fabric to work with. So it happens, and it's just a matter of like learning your machine and how you need to help it do the job you're asking it to do. Who am I? Oh shit, wait, no, I did not do the seam allowances in the correct order. You're supposed to do a narrower seam allowance first, then a wider seam allowance. But that's okay. I'm not going to unpick this. I'm just going to trim it down. But just, you know, because you're watching this after the fact, where I am doing the learning part. Again, we're practicing. We're not being hard on ourselves. The point of doing this kind of seam was to get better at doing this kind of seam. So I'm going to trim down pretty close. I mean, I think you're supposed to trim it down anyway, but I could have done a smaller seam allowance to start with. I did consider switching to like a purple or blue thread, but it's going to be noticeable no matter what because the color varies throughout this edge here. So I'm just doing black because the detail is in black and I don't think it's going to look out of place. You know what I mean? Plus, you can see what I did. I think I may have trimmed it like a little too close, but we're about to do another set of stitches over this, so it's probably fine. So now I'm going to open this up so that it's inside out. We're going to line this edge up right sides together. Normally you would press this out, but this is basically plastic, so I'm not going to do that. So now it's hidden in there, and I'm going to go in 1/4 inch and seal this up. And then I may do another row of stitching after. All right, this is what it looks like from the inside. This is what it looks like from the outside. I think that looks a lot nicer than dealing with like a serged edge. But yeah, that first seam allowance is caught right in there, like a little lobster cage. The best part about top stitching with sheer fabric is you don't have to worry about stitching from the outside because you can see exactly where all the under shit is that you're trying to catch. And that's what that looks like now, and I like it even more. Cool. All right, so now that we have our tube, it's time to cut some elastic. I'm going to take my fold over elastic, make sure it is folded over because it's going to stretch differently like this than like this. And since folded over is the way it's going to be worn, that's the important way. So because there's so much variety in elastic when you're making a waistband, well, using it for anything, I don't even get into numbers. I just take the elastic I'm going to use, wrap it around the spot it's going to go, stretch it so that it's comfortable, mark that position, and then just add like 1/2 inch over from there for seam allowance. It's the only way I make it dummy proof because if I go by numbers, I feel like I always fuck it up, and there's so little consistency across types of elastic that I don't see the point in stressing out about math. There's already so many like surprise calculations you have to do in sewing sometimes. Let's not add more than necessary. Anyways, Here is my elastic piece. I'm gonna sew the raw edges together, do a substantial amount of back stitching across this edge here, and that will give us our elastic loop. Ta-da! Just to reduce bulk, because this is getting folded over, I did open up that seam allowance and stitch it down. I'm going to line up the seams, make sure this is not upside down. It doesn't matter which side you sew from because it's fold over, so like it's gonna look the same on both sides. But what I did with that handkerchief skirt, and definitely helped me not pull my own hair out working on it, is I lined up the raw edge of the skirt to just at that center line, pinned in quarters, so like find the half points of those half points. Do that as many times as you need to till you're comfortable to like sew with it. Okay, I pinned it in 8 different spots. That seems adequate. Last time I was using the fold over elastic, I found myself needing to find an extra hand somewhere to hold things in place. You know, maybe not being the most efficient and quick about making this, but it's gonna be more fun and less frustrating doing this kind of prep work. That's where I'm at with my sewing, man, and it has made all the difference in a lot of these projects where I have just been enjoying the process so much more. And that's the whole fucking point, right? Anyways, so I'm just gonna stretch both of these so that they're laying flat against each other. A note to make here, I did the exact same width of the elastic for my last skirt, so I know it'll go up over my hips. I should have double checked it, but just make sure that whatever elastic amount you're doing, when it's stretched to its fullest, it can't get up over the biggest part of you, because how else will you get into the thing? Because both of these are stretchy, I am going to do a zigzag stitch, where on the rainbow skirt, I did a straight stitch because there was no give to the charmeuse I was using. But I bounce between sewing elastic on with straight stitches and zigzag stitches, and I feel like it may confuse people. It's from trial and error. You all honestly probably know more than I do and are just watching me naively work my way through the world of figuring out sewing things. So anyways, yes, zigzag stitch along here. Okay, so now I'm gonna fold this bit over. I'm gonna stitch it from this outside just so I can at least make it look kind of nice. And I will have to stretch again as I'm going just to make sure there's no weird bunching and that it has the same amount of give as that first row of zigzagging I just did. Also, I know I've mentioned this before, but it's just a good reminder, and maybe you are new here, which if you are, hi, hey, hello. When I pull on anything stretchy going through here, I pull against my own hands rather than putting the stress on the needle. That's how you break your shit. And I don't like doing that because it's terrifying every time. Hey, now we have our skirt done. If you need to hem the bottom, go ahead and hem it. But like, I'm done the thing. That went so quick. Less than an hour? I think I spent less than an hour on this. For once, I had a guess on how long a thing was gonna take me to do, and it took me that amount of time. What a world. But most importantly, let's do a little fashion try on, shall we? Honestly, I don't even think I would hate it over the dress I am currently wearing, though I won't need a belt on it. I mean, it's a lot happening, but not making me mad. And yeah, this is why I wanted the stretch, you know? Cool. All right, let's try it on the actual dresses I want to put this with. Okay, we did it. Obviously, the black dress with the skirty bit over it is my favorite because it feels the most Halloween-y, and who doesn't like wearing black dresses? I say as I am absolutely sweating my tits off. It's so hot outside. I had so much fun making this skirt, and the skirt, now that it is finished, also brings me joy and fun. So I'm pumped to just have this to add to outfits, and I want to do it with every sheer fabric I have in my stash. And it's also giving me ideas for fun little outfits I can make this little bean. If you have Halloween costume suggestions, it's never too early to start planning. Bert was out there during that little photo shoot, both digging up dirt to eat and covering his new frog toy in the dirt as well. So excuse the filth while I shout out all the patrons. You deserve better, but this is why I call him Stink Bean. He's really bringing the heat today. But it's because all of these wonderful, lovely nerds that I'm able to do this and share my projects with the world. Thank each and every one of you. You mean so much to me, and I just appreciate that you want to throw your support in my direction in such a huge, tangible way. I can never thank you enough. I did just post the pattern layout, like the measurements and how many pieces for last week's project, the reversible tote bag. So that's up there for free, whether or not you actually donate to my Patreon page. You have access to all the patterns there. And yeah, it is thanks to them that I get to do that stuff for free. If you're interested in something like Patreon, but a monthly thing seems a little daunting, I do have a Ko-fi page if you're interested. I know times are hard, so I totally get it. I'll still be here regardless, and I appreciate any of you just hanging out. The way that a lot of you contribute in the comments section and share stuff with me on Instagram and Twitter, it's huge. It makes such a big positive impact in my life, genuinely, and I can't tell you how much better many years, but especially a hard year like this one, has been because of you all. So I super appreciate you. As for a Black creator recommendation, it is not a YouTube channel. There's an amazing podcast hosted by two Black women named Bim and Nichole, and it's called Thirst Aid Kit. That is thirst as in thirsty AF, and I can't stop listening to it. It is both delightful and embarrassing to listen to in a public place, such as, you know, my day job, but it is truly some of the greatest hours of my month every month listening to those episodes. So I will definitely link in the description, and I just love them. I love their rapport with each other. They seem to have a great friendship from what they show on the podcast, and they have really great interviews. They had Jason Mantzoukas, who is one of my biggest celebrity crushes, on, and the amount of squealing I did listening to that episode, it just made me feel things I didn't know I was capable of feeling anymore in the best, nerdiest, dorkiest way possible. As for my Twitter and Instagram, I'll have those linked below, as well as my Etsy shop and all the other stuff I mentioned. Thank you so much to everyone that wants to be internet friends with me. I really appreciate the company. And I will see you all back here next Friday. Thank you so much for hanging out. It's hard to do Vanna White hands backwards, but